All right, Jim Hart back at you here today with another episode of the Ask a Lawyer show. This is the most exciting internet-related legal show on the YouTubers. That sounded stupid. This is the most exciting legal Ask a Lawyer a Question show on YouTube. You with me? All right, so today I want to talk to you. Historically, what I've been doing the past couple weeks is I've been answering some viewer questions, and today I want to go into a bit more of a deep dive into the divorce process in North Carolina and how exactly it works. And specifically what I want to talk to you about is whether or not you should file a lawsuit or not. So before we talk about whether or not you should file a lawsuit, I think it's important to share a little bit of background about divorce process in North Carolina. Basically, the way the divorce process works here is if you want to get divorced in North Carolina, and if you are going through this, first of all, I'm really sorry. I don't wish this on anyone. It's not ideal. The best advice I can give a lot of my clients is if there's a way to fix the marriage, you should try and fix the marriage. That's going to be much preferable to going through a separation and a divorce. In the worst case scenario, you do have to go through this, or maybe it's involuntary. Maybe your spouse wants the divorce and there's nothing you can do about it. In that type of situation, how do you know when to file a lawsuit? Well, the first thing is when you use the term file a lawsuit in North Carolina. North Carolina is a little different than some other states. Other states, when you file a lawsuit for a divorce or for dissolution of marriage, in some states it's called, basically what you're doing is you're including everything together in one legal document. That could be equitable distribution, that could be, which is basically dividing up what you have and what you owe. That could be spousal support or alimony, that could be child custody, that could be child support, and it could be also attorney's fees, and there also could be some tort claims. Tort is a fancy word saying, you know, if there was physical abuse during the marriage, or if there's something else that you would need to sue your spouse for, then you could include that in the complaint. The complaint is how you start a lawsuit, by the way. So, little background. That's how most states do it. North Carolina is completely funky. You cannot file for divorce in North Carolina until after you've been separated for 1 year and a day. That's the soonest you can actually file for divorce. So when people come to me and they're not even separated yet, then the question is, well, can you even file a lawsuit at that point? And the answer is maybe. And the reason why it's maybe is because there's certain things that you can file before you separate, and there's certain things that you can file after you separate. Some of the things that you can file before you separate are basically going to be child custody, because you can always file child custody if you want to get something resolved before you decide to separate. You can file a child custody claim, or you can file for child support, and you can do that before you separate. Now, there's one other cause of action in North Carolina that you can do, and that is called a divorce from bed and board. Now, many people get this confused with an actual divorce. It is not an actual divorce. It's, I guess, what you can call a judicially recognized separation. It's a way to get somebody out of the house if you've got no other way to get them out of the house, basically. And to file that, there has to be some degree of marital fault. And that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother video, and I'm not going into that today. However, what we're going to talk about today is when do you file all the other stuff. So forget about custody and child support for a moment. When do you file the claim for equitable distribution, for post-separation support, for alimony, and those type of things? When do you do that? What I like to tell a lot of my clients is if you can try and stay out of court, that's going to be preferable. And it's really going to be dependent on each particular situation. If you and your spouse are amicable with each other and you're talking and you're able to work things out and you're able to sign a separation agreement without the necessity of going to lawyers or going to court, for sure, then that's going to be the best situation, obviously. But if you have a situation that's very tense, that you can't talk to your spouse, that they're unwilling to share with you any financial documentation, that they're unwilling to do a lot of other things that would move the case along, they're unwilling to be what we would call reasonable, then that is going to cause a lot more problems, and that is going to increase the likelihood that you're going to need to go to court. Now, a lot of times when you avoid going to court, you're going to alleviate a lot of the stress and the tension and the cost associated with a divorce situation. But in some situations, it can't be avoided, I guess is the way I look at that. And so the question is, well, when do you do that? Well, the first thing is you can't do it until the court has what's called jurisdiction. And what jurisdiction is that means the court has basically the legal authority to hear your case. And when we're talking about equitable distribution or post-separation support or alimony, the court can't actually make a determination of any of those issues until you're actually physically separated. So if you're in a situation where you're both living together in the same house, then this isn't a question that you even need to worry about, because neither one of you can file a lawsuit until somebody moves out. And so if you're trying to avoid a lawsuit, staying together in the same house is one way to do that, because your spouse is not going to be able to sue you as long as you're living together. That being said, that raises a whole bunch of other issues. You know, is your spouse going to try and pull something like filing a domestic violence protective order, or is your spouse going to do what we talked about just a little bit before and file a divorce from bed and board, or is your spouse going to do something else, or your spouse going to call the cops on you and say that you're doing whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of other issues that could crop up if you're staying together in a situation where both of you really should not be staying together in anymore. And if you're in an unsafe situation, I would always recommend that you leave the house as soon as possible. So that's the first issue. Are you still in the house? If you're still in the house, you can't file a lawsuit, and neither can your spouse. As soon as you move out, then somebody can file a lawsuit. And here's where you need to be really careful. Because if you're the person who is hoping to receive support and you're trying to negotiate things with your spouse, and you decide to move out and you don't have an agreement on how much you're going to receive, or alternatively how much you're going to pay, then especially if you're on the receiving end, it could take 4 to 6 months or longer to get in front of a judge to hear those temporary issues in terms of support. Now, depending on the discrepancy in your incomes and depending on a lot of other issues, chances are you're going to be successful in court and you'll ultimately get what you need, but can you make do in the months between when you separate and when your spouse actually starts paying you support? So if you force your spouse to move out and they're the supporting spouse and you don't have a way to pay the bills in the house, that can be problematic. So that's one thing you need to consider. And a lot of people, they separate and they think, well, we'll just kind of work this out, and we'll be friendly, and he or she is going to continue to pay the bills that they're supposed to pay. Well, you can't rely on that, and you don't know that that's going to happen, especially if you're not receiving enough support and you think that maybe by just continuing to negotiate a little bit longer, eventually you're going to get what you want. If there's no lawsuit pending, there's no court date pending, which means there's no fire under his or her butt to get them to do anything. And so you need to be really careful about that. I tell people, if you're in a situation where you don't think that you're going to be able to negotiate with your spouse, and one of you decides to move out, if you're the supporting spouse, I don't bother filing a lawsuit. We're just going to wait, because eventually you're going to get sued, and what I tell them is to provide a reasonable amount of support, which is what I think they should be doing, which is what a judge would ask them to do. And if you're the dependent spouse, I say, well, you need to file a lawsuit as quickly as possible. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Are you on the supporting side, or are you on the dependent side? If you're on the supporting side, less incentive to go to court, because you don't want the judge ordering a big award. If you're on the dependent side, then you want to get in there as quickly as possible so that you can have a judge award some support in your favor. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to the question today, but basically that's, should you file a lawsuit or not in North Carolina? That's my response to that. If you've got questions, please feel free to submit a comment below or email me, or you can go to our contact page at jameshartlaw.com/contact. There should be I'm going to put a banner right here. Go over here and make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment, hit the like button, and I think there's also a little like a timepiece or something that'll give you notifications when I have new videos coming out. Typically these videos come out every Monday, and as well as my email newsletter goes out every Monday, and there you have it. So I hope you have a great day, folks. My name is Jim Hart. I'm from the Hart Law Firm. We are a family law and divorce firm in Cary, North Carolina. We handle cases in Cary, Raleigh, Wake County generally. And so if you have any questions or you'd like to come in and talk to us, please feel free to give us a call. And that's it for today. All right, now I gotta do some funny pictures, good pictures.